I started advertising on Google 15 years ago in 2009 and have personally managed ad campaigns that have spent more than $20 million on Google Ads and worked with 1,000 plus clients in every industry you can think of. I say this right at the beginning to let you know that I know what I'm talking about and you can implement what I advise, safe in the knowledge that it comes from a good source. I'm going to compress those 15 years of Google Ads experience into this one video. Let's get started. Number 1. Amateurs focus on reducing cost to acquire a customer. Experts focus on increasing lifetime customer value. So a lot of Google advertisers have a scenario where, let's say, each customer is worth $60 to their business, and they are paying, in terms of Google ad cost, $20 to acquire that customer. So they're currently generating a 3x return on ad spend. And understandably, they want to improve that return on ad spend. They want their Google ad campaigns to be more successful, more profitable. The best way of measuring that is usually return on ad spend. So they try and focus on, okay, how can I get my cost per conversion down from the $20 cost that I've currently got? Can I tweak this? Can I adjust that? And all those things are good, and that's what I talk about in my videos, and that's all stuff that you want to do. But often it is much easier to increase your customer value from, say, $60 to $80 or $90. Often that's not that hard to do, as opposed to reducing your cost per conversion from $20, in that case it'd have to be 0 or down to $10. Fighting to get that cost per conversion down by a few dollars is possible but quite difficult to do. But increasing, on the other side, your lifetime customer value is often much easier to do and can make your campaign much more profitable. If we're looking at that 3x return on ad spend example, cost to acquire a customer is $20, the customer's worth $60, doubling that return on ad spend, so going from a 3x to a 6x, would require you to decrease your cost per conversion from $20 to $10. That's going to be really hard to do, especially at scale. Might be impossible depending on your industry. Whereas increasing your customer lifetime value from $60 to $120, very much possible. Businesses do it all the time. They add subscription offers. They improve the quality of their product or service so people come back and buy again. They put a bit more budget into remarketing to reactivate customers. All sorts of things you can do. And that's what the absolute experts really focus on. Right, that leads into my next point, which is only 2 Google ad metrics really matter. And really, it's only one for each business. It's either your return on ad spend or your cost per conversion. Now, the reason why I say we've got 2 there is because not all businesses can measure their return on ad spend very effectively. If you're a service-based business, you're generating leads, it's difficult for you to optimize within your Google ad campaign to see what our return is, because obviously the conversion is going to happen offline for the most part once you've spoken to the prospect, etc., etc. So in that case, you're going to measure cost per conversion. If you're not a business like that, where you can accurately track your return on ad spend, then go ahead and do that. If you're an e-commerce business, you've got Google shopping campaigns or whatever, if you can see the value of the customer coming through, then use return on ad spend. It's very easy for Google advertisers to get lost in all the noise and looking at all the metrics and optimizing for those things sometimes when they shouldn't. So I don't care if your CTR is really good with a certain ad versus another ad if that ad has a worse ROAS than your other options. I don't care if your cost per click is less if your ROAS is worse than the other options. And I see so often Google advertisers optimizing for those things, getting lost in the weeds, looking at all these other metrics. Those metrics are secondary. Yes, they're useful. Yes, you can use them to help your results, but only once you've based your decisions around the primary metric, which is either return on ad spend or cost per conversion. So that's what you use to make decisions. You use the secondary metrics, things like click-through rates, cost per clicks, all that sort of stuff, to assess why something happened, to try and work out at a deeper level, okay, this ad's done well, I can see that in the ROAS, why has it done well? Okay, we've got this and this here. Okay, this ad hasn't done well, why hasn't this done as well? Okay, that's when we dig into secondary metrics, but don't make optimization decisions on those secondary metrics first. Always use ROAS or cost per conversion. Okay, point number 3. Google ad results fluctuate. Get over it. I've spoken to a lot of Google advertisers that tear their hair out trying to get consistent day-to-day results from the Google ad campaigns. That's just not realistic. And it's not realistic because Google Ads isn't a video game, and a lot of advertisers treat it like it is. You're advertising to real people that are affected by real-world events. Simple things like the weather that can obviously fluctuate day to day can have an impact on your ad results depending on what you sell. We're affected by news events, by what your competitors are doing, by new offers, by all sorts of various things. They fluctuate, don't worry about it. The key is to not look at day-to-day results. The key is to expand your time horizons and measure things over weeks, months, potentially even longer if you're comparing, say, this month to this month last year and that sort of thing. That's where you need to look at your data and compare. Otherwise, you just end up driving yourself mad trying to get day-to-day consistency. which just isn't possible, and it's a waste of time and a waste of effort. And that's linked to my next point, which is to not fight seasonality. So one of the reasons why results fluctuate so much is because different times of the year affect businesses massively. And the more and more I've spent on Google Ads, the more I've operated as a digital marketer, and the larger scale I've gotten to, the more you see seasonality have an impact. I would say most businesses actually are affected by seasonality to some extent. There are going to be good times of the year and there are going to be bad times of the year. Now, what I see a lot of advertisers do is because they want to try and get like consistent results throughout the year, they spend more during the bad times of the year and less during the good times of the year. That doesn't make sense. If you want the best overall return on ad spend, it's much better to spend more during the good times of the year and less during the bad times of the year. Now, that will mean that your results during those good times of the year are way, way better than the rest of the year, and your results will sort of fluctuate with those seasons. But if you're going to assess return on ad spend over a longer time horizon, like over a 12-month period, that's definitely the better way to go. Number 5, exceptional lead follow-up is more important than exceptional lead generation, and your competitors aren't doing it. A lot of Google advertisers are guilty of this. They generate a lead, they don't call them right away, they wait till the next day, they give them a call, they don't get through, they leave a voicemail, the prospect didn't call them back, so they send an email in a couple of days' time, and then they go, rubbish lead, give up. Was it a poor quality lead, or was your lead follow-up just not as good as it needed to be? The difference you can make to the quality of the Google advertiser's lead, without touching the Google ads at all, but just by implementing a really good lead follow-up process, is massive. We have 3x the return on ad spend from client ad accounts by recommending and getting them to implement proper lead follow-up. Same campaigns, same volume of leads, but getting 3 times as many customers from it, 3 times the revenue, because really good lead follow-up. So instead of what I described previously, how about you try and call your leads within 5 minutes of them becoming a lead? Yes, that might mean you have a member of staff dedicated to contacting them right away, but that may well be worth it. And then if they don't pick up that time, call them again later that day, call them the next day, call them twice a day for the next 5 days. You have a much greater chance of getting through. Also follow up with email, also follow up with SMS. Get a hold of the prospect. Do what you can. You've already paid for it. You've already paid for those leads. So doing what you can to make contact and increase your percentage chance that you will make contact is going to make a massive difference to whether or not that lead goes on to convert and whether or not you think it's a good quality lead. Because getting contact is such a huge part of taking someone from a Google ad campaign all the way through to a paying client if lead generation is one of the steps that needs to take place in that. So that's an underestimated, one of the most underestimated things out of this list that I've got, and I really want to drive that point home because it's so important. Number 6, optimize campaigns when you've got enough conversion volume, not time. Okay, so one of the most common questions I get is how long should I leave an ad, keyword, targeting, etc. before I assess results and change things? And actually it's not to do with time, it's to do with conversion volume. Because let's say one business is generating 2,000 conversions a day. Well, you might find out whether or not ad is working, whether or not targeting a specific keyword is profitable within a few hours. Or another business that's generating 5 conversions a week. Well, you might need to wait months before you know whether or not a specific ad or keyword or whatever is performing well. So it's conversion volume, not time. I actually recommend that Google advertisers spend a little bit of time with a statistical significance calculator, free online tools, and just input your numbers, and you'll start to get a feel for when a statistical significance calculator tells you this is statistically significant, you can now use this data, this is representative of what's likely to happen going forward, you can use it to optimize your campaigns. And I see so many advertisers who say things like, well, I generated 2 conversions in this campaign and 4 conversions in this campaign. The campaign with 4 conversions is doing better. Should I turn this one off? And nearly always the answer is no, it's got 2 conversions. If you get 2 more conversions in the next 10 minutes, which is absolutely possible, that's going to have better results than this one. You don't have enough data yet. This is not statistically significant. So something to really think about. Number 7, start with search, expand to performance max. So I think most Google advertisers start with search campaigns. I think that makes sense. It's the easiest part of Google ads to understand. It's the part most people think about when they think of Google ads, like you search in Google, you get ads that pop up that are relevant to that search. I think start there. It's what most Google advertisers do. But at some point you absolutely want to expand to Performance Max. Performance Max lets you take advantage of all the various places that you can advertise within the Google Ads world. And there's lots of them. There's YouTube, there's Google Shopping, there's Gmail, there's display campaigns, there's all sorts of different placements and places you can put ads you want to take advantage of. But you don't want to start there because A, it's more complicated for you as an advertiser, and B, Google needs conversion data to be able to optimize a Performance Max campaign properly. So start with search, get those conversions, and then look to expand into Performance Max and test that out. But you do want to add that in most business at some point because it can produce great results. I'll move on to point number 8 in a second. Before I do, just want to quickly let you know about our done-for-you Google Ads services. So my agency can create, manage, and optimize your Google Ad campaigns for you, take that workload off your hands, and almost certainly get you much better results than if you manage it yourselves. If that sounds interesting, there is a link in the video description below. You can click on that, come through to a page on our website, and book in a free no obligation call with our team to find out more about exactly how we can help and the results we might be able to get for you. So go ahead and book a call if that sounds interesting, and hopefully we get a chance to work together. Number 8. Brand power is the single biggest needle mover. Now, when I first started in Google Ads, it was very sort of popular. It was the theory at the time that branding didn't matter. All these big companies were silly. They had no idea what they were doing. And us Google advertisers with the relatively new ad platform at that stage, we were direct response marketers. It was just about clicks and getting through to your website and getting to convert. And it turns out that's not true at all. And that thought process still sort of lingers over a lot of Google advertising. A lot of people see it as pay-per-click, as very direct response. And of course, you don't have to have a brand in order to succeed with Google Ads, not at all. But in terms of what makes succeeding with Google Ads really easy, it's if you're advertising a big brand. And the reason why is because people see a brand, they are far more likely to click, they are far more likely to purchase. Why? Because what they are doing with a brand is they are assuming that that product is going to be better, or at least assuming that it's not going to be rubbish. That's what brand does. Think about the things you buy, and then think about a product or something that you buy that you really don't want to go wrong. Okay, something that will be really important. Let's say you were going to buy a new fridge, for example. You're probably going to buy that from one of the big brands. Do you want to take a risk on a brand you haven't heard of for something like a fridge that could go wrong and ruin all your food and leak and whatever? Probably not. So obviously this is more or less important depending on what you sell. If it's a small little impulse purchase, people are far more willing to risk it on an unknown brand. So that's just to demonstrate the importance of brand quickly, a bit of a tangent there. What does that mean for you as a Google advertiser? Well, firstly, you build a brand the longer you go on, and you can build a good brand or you can build a bad brand. And you don't just do that with, expensive, weird TV commercials, which is what a lot of people think of when they think branding. You do that with how you deliver for your customers. How do you provide the service? What packaging does your product come in? How good's your customer service if there are issues or complaints? All those touch points build a brand. That's what leads to word of mouth. That's what leads to referral. That's what builds a brand. My advice for a lot of small businesses looking to build a brand is build a brand within your space. It doesn't have to be a global brand. Build a brand within your niche. Think about all the interactions you have with your customers, potential customers, as a brand building exercise alongside trying to generate purchases, leads, etc. So the ads that they see, the website they come through to, like I said, the packaging of your product, the customer service team, the reach outs, the email follow-up, the social media content they might see after the fact. These are all things that contribute to your brand and can be built over time. And you can build negative or positive associations. And it's one of those where, because I've been doing this long enough now, it's easy for me to say, do these things right, and in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, you'll have an amazing brand, and that will make everything so much easier. At the beginning of the journey, you can be like, 10 years, are you mad? But like, really, it can be huge. I've worked with businesses that have built a fantastic brand, and now it's just so easy. Their Google Ad campaigns just print money because they have this brand power. And when their ads pop up, someone's searching, they go, oh yeah, I've heard of them. So-and-so recommended them. Right, I'm going to buy that one. And you just see the ROAS number steadily tick up. The way to hack that, by the way, to try and shortcut the process is to leverage other people's brands. So think about this as effectively influencer marketing. I'm a big fan of using influencers in your ads. Like if you're going to be running video ads in particular, say on YouTube or in other parts of Google Ad Network, maybe look to hire an influencer to create those videos for you. If you're running ads on the display network, you could hire influencers to be in your product images. Can make a really big difference because then you're drawing on their brand power. It's one of the best ways to shortcut that. But again, another really important point. It's a patient one. It's one that takes a long time. I know that most people who watch this video will not pay any attention to that because they want the quick wins, but don't let that one be you. Okay, point number 9. Use Google's AI tools, but don't rely on them. Now, when we're creating Google Ad campaigns, we can input a bit of information, links to our website, and ask Google to generate keyword ideas, ad copy, all that sort of stuff. And a lot of it's actually really good now, but a lot of it's not. So you have to be the filter. So when you go through your campaign creation, absolutely use all of that, do all that sort of stuff, but just go through and then go, okay, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is not good, going to get rid of that. This doesn't even make sense given what I offer. Don't rely on them. I've seen some Google advertisers, well, people often tend to fall into one of two camps, right? They're either not using any of the AI tools at all, they're not using ChatGPT to help them create Google ad copy and things like that, and that's silly. You definitely want to be using these tools. It's helpful to help save time. Or they're on the other end and they just use it, don't think about it. And they're like, oh, the AI's got it. No. Think of the AI as time-saving devices, either Google's own stuff or external stuff like ChatGPT. Think of it as time-saving, not as a replacement for you as a Google advertiser. As they improve, it's going to save us more and more time, but there's always going to need to be input from the advertiser to differentiate you from the competition. Otherwise, the AI would just produce the same stuff for you as it would for them. There'd be no differentiation. Who's going to win in that environment? Well, it's the advertiser that adds something in, something to be conscious of. Okay, number 10. Some leads are good, some leads are bad. That's just life. Now, we've already talked about lead follow-up massively increasing your the quality of your leads, even though technically that hasn't increased quality of your leads. You're just getting more out of them. Google advertisers are always annoyed at their lead quality. They always want better lead quality. They always complain, oh, these leads aren't as good as I want them to be. I use Performance Max on the display network. The leads were terrible in comparison to my search campaigns. And there's all these sort of gripes. And I think that instead of obsessing over some bad quality leads coming through, it's much better just to be like, let's convert who we can, let's generate more leads, and let's move forward. Just accept that you're not going to get perfect leads. Like even the leads that I generate, right? Like we run ad campaigns to my warm audiences. So people who have watched my YouTube videos, have interacted with me on social, are part of my email list. So these are warm audiences. We then really qualify. If someone goes to book a call for our Done For You services, they've got to answer a series of questions that are designed to remove people that don't qualify. Even with all of that, like we're being really strict with our lead gen, we still get poor quality leads come through because that's just like, it's just going to happen. You just got to roll with it and move on. Okay, number 11. I know some people watching this video, this will apply to you, so pay close attention. If people can buy similar products to yours from Amazon for less, your campaigns will not succeed. You have to remember that you're advertising in a competitive landscape. And we have seen this happen a number of times where we've perhaps started working with a business, or often when we've been asked to consult and they said, look, our ad campaigns were performing really well, and then they dropped off all of a sudden. And then we go in and we do the research and we have a look and we were like, right, one of your competitors launched a superior product for 20% less. And look, it's available on Amazon Prime and people can get it next day. And they're like, oh. These things absolutely impact your results because you're advertising to real people who are going to, for the most part, make decisions that are logical, that are in their best interest, that are going to either save them money or make it easier. Now, it's not to say you have to be selling on Amazon or anything like that. It's just like you need a differentiated offer. You don't need to be on price. You could be differentiated based on your brand. You could be differentiated based on the features. You could be differentiated based on your customer story and the connection between you and the customers. There's many different ways to differentiate. Of course, there's better product features, there's price, there's all of those as well. But you need some differentiation. If it's just a carbon copy of something else, if you're just drop shipping and everyone else selling the same thing, good luck. It's not going to succeed in the long run. Number 12, don't try to outsmart Google. So most, not all, most of their recommendations that you see within your ad account are beneficial. They are going to improve your results. Things when Google says, try adding in more headline options, more description options, that gives Google more opportunity to test. You're probably going to get better results. The ones to be wary of are ones around budget increases. There is some logic to increasing your budget, getting more conversions. The Google ad campaign can therefore optimize better. That is true. But you also have to recognize that that's within Google's interest. And sometimes their budget recommendations are a little bit like, is this good for me or is this good for you? But most of the rest are. And I think Google advertisers are often quite skeptical over those recommendations, but a lot of the optimizations where they say optimize for conversion value instead of conversions. Well, yeah, if you can track conversion value, you're going to get better results than optimizing for conversions from a return on ad spend standpoint. And also, obviously, with things like campaign types and objectives, if you want sales, don't try and outsmart it and optimize for clicks or optimize for impression share and do all these sorts of things and use different campaign objectives. Just go with what Google recommends for the most part. Okay, next point, number 13. The most successful Google advertisers aren't the most intelligent, they are the most relentless. Now, I've hired dozens, maybe even hundreds of people over the last 9 years since I had my first employee. And I know that certain people are more naturally talented at Google Ads, digital marketing than others. they aren't necessarily the ones that end up being the best. The ones that end up being the best are the ones that commit to the most volume. They're the ones that write the most new ads, that create the most images to test on display network, that produce the most short videos to run as YouTube ad campaigns. They're the ones that create the most volume, test, then, this is really important, then take the time to assess the results, analyze, work out why certain things worked really well, why certain things didn't, then create a new batch, test, and they do that again and again and again. Because if you were to create, say, 500 ads for the same offer, what's the chance that your campaigns wouldn't be very good after 500 ads? Like almost none. Even if you're completely clueless, you're going to stumble across something that works really well at that point. If you've spent that much time crafting ad copy, working out what works in your market, like you're going to end up with fantastic ads if you just keep going. So volume, volume, volume. Number 14, your Google ad budget should not be linked to audience size. It should be based on the needs of your business. Now, a lot of advertisers understandably think, okay, well, I'm going to expand the geographical area, let's say that I'm advertising in, therefore I need to spend more money. That's not true. You don't need to do that at all. You can advertise nationally with a really small budget. These two things don't need to be linked. It's one of the advantages of platforms like Google Ads, particularly with things like Performance Max campaigns. Google will find the right people. They'll find the people that are interested in your products and services. So that could be a small budget to a really large area. You don't have to increase your budget. Now, of course, if you're expanding geographical area, you might want to scale. That might be why you're doing it, in which case, great. But don't think that those two things need to be linked. Your budget should be based around the needs of your business. Work backwards from, say, a sales target or a lead volume target. Okay, we want to generate this many leads. We think, based on our data, we're getting this cost per lead. Therefore, if we're going to hit these metrics, we need to spend this much. It'd be based on the needs of your business, and it can fluctuate. It can change according to stock levels, all that sort of stuff. Be quite flexible with that. Don't sort of think there are hard and fast rules. I've seen a lot of advertisers make that mistake. Point number 15. Nothing allows a business to scale faster than a Google Ads campaign that crushes, particularly when you're using Performance Match, which obviously takes advantage of all the various places you can advertise on Google. I have seen some outstanding, some just phenomenal results where you've got campaigns, you've been optimizing, you work it out, and all of a sudden you've got an 8x return on ad spend, an 11x return on ad spend, a 15x return on ad spend, and you think, whoa, we can really just put our foot on the floor here and just absolutely go for this, massively scale up. Campaigns are still nicely profitable, generating huge amounts of customers. What nearly always ends up happening is that the deliverable side of the business, so if it's product-based, it's going to be stock. If it's a service, it's going to be capacity. That's the part of the business that struggles to keep up. Sometimes we've done this in a digital environment where that's much less of an issue, and you just see businesses absolutely take off. And I think it's really important to be aware of that if you're putting in the hard work into Google Ad campaigns, to know the potential rewards are massive if you can work this out and get this right, because you can take a business that's doing, 50 grand a year, and it can be doing millions a year in not that long a time period if you get a Google Ad campaign to absolutely crush, and you can just generate tons of customers and scale really quickly. Number 16, going niche allows you to charge more. Now, a lot of advertisers are reluctant, and business owners in general are reluctant to go niche because they think it reduces their overall market size in terms of the number of people they can potentially advertise to. And that is true, but the upside to going more niche is that you can charge more. We've all had those experiences where you've bought something that's a bit more generic, kind of suitable for you think, but then you actually get it, product or service, and you're like, this isn't quite right for me. I can see why this would be great for some people, but it just doesn't quite meet my requirements. But when you go more niche and you go, no, we're only going to service these people, just this specific group, you can then tailor your product or service to be perfect for them, to really help them get what they want to get, to really help them avoid what they want to avoid, and people will obviously be willing to pay more for it. I'll give you an example. So let's say you're a recruitment agency. Now, a really broad general recruitment agency is, we will help you find people to fill your roles, whatever they are, okay? Really broad, really generic, largest market. But you could go more specific than that. You could be like, we're a recruitment agency that operates in the tech sector. Okay, which one would you expect to pay more for if you were looking to hire someone? Well, you're going to pay more for the recruitment agency who specializes in the tech sector. And you'll also be willing to pay more, by the way, because it'll be more helpful for you if you're a tech business. Then you go further. We are a recruitment agency that hires C-suite executives for tech businesses. Okay, now what would you expect to pay for that service? A lot more. And would you be willing to pay for it? Well, yeah, if you had a CEO or a CMO or something like that to hire for, and you're a tech business, great. You could even take it further than that and say, We're a recruitment agency that hires C-suite level executives for tech businesses doing over $50 million a year. You'd expect to pay way, way, way more for that because that whole business is specifically set up to service this very specific need. And for the businesses that have that specific need, they'd be willing to pay a fortune for it because it would be worth so much to their business. So that's an example of how going niche can be really beneficial. Now, obviously there's a trade-off. Your audience size is smaller. There is a point where you can go too small. The customers might be more difficult to get. But I think most businesses, particularly small businesses, could benefit from being less broad, going more niche, being able to charge more for it, being able to more specifically serve their customers and working all that out than they currently are. They lean more towards too broad as opposed to too niche. Number 17, you will live if your cost per conversion goes up by 20%. This is just a general reminder to all Google advertisers to just chill out a little bit. If your cost per conversion goes up by 20%, just see that as feedback. It doesn't need to be the end of the world. It doesn't need to kill your business. It might be a natural fluctuation and change by itself, or it might be information that goes, okay, we need to change something. We need to mix this up. Right, let's get to that landing page change that we've been thinking about doing for a couple of months because yeah, we think it could be better. Let's break our ad groups down into more specific keyword groupings and be more specific with our messaging. Let's hire that influencer to feature in our display campaigns in the imagery that we're going to use there. Setbacks happen, which they will. You advertise long enough, like you will have things happen that you don't want. Try not to let it be the end of the world. Panicking never helped anyone. Calm. It's feedback. How can we improve things? How can we move forward? Number 18, other ad platforms always look greener. Now, I know a lot of people that follow my stuff on this channel will know that I also have a meta ads channel and my agency is very much active on both. And when it comes to online advertising, Google Ads is the absolute biggest, Meta being very much a second, and then there are other platforms. Amazon's kind of a slightly different thing, and there are other options as well. But there's always going to be other ad platforms that pop up that you think, oh, you know, maybe I should be running ads on TikTok, or maybe I should be running ads on here. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying that don't jump from what you're currently doing thinking it will be easier there. So if you've got a Google ad campaign up and running, it's working well, and you're thinking, I want to add in Meta ads, I want to add in TikTok ads, I want to add in LinkedIn ads, fine. But don't think, oh, this Google ad thing is too hard. I'm going to jump to this other place, it's going to be much easier. That's almost certainly not going to be the case. Almost certainly not going to be the case. And because Google Ads is the largest online ad network, if you do manage to make it work, it has the most scalability. So the potential upside is the greatest. Something to really consider. Small business owners do this all the time, right? We always jump to things that we think might be easier because we don't know how difficult it might be over there. We've gotten into Google Ads, we can see how complicated it is, etc., etc. But that's folly. That's not a smart way of doing things. Okay, that kind of leads on to my next point, number 19, which is ignore the noise from people that say Google Ads is dying. Since I started in 2009, people were saying Google Ads is dying. They were saying, oh, Google Ads isn't what it used to be, like in 2006, in the good old days. And that hasn't changed. And it happens with all forms of marketing. You'll hear people say about SEO. You hear people say about meta ads. You hear people say about TV ads. Everything's dying always for the people that are in it. And of course it's not. It's absolutely not. Look at the overall revenues that Google generate from advertising. It's going up and up and up and up, right? So clearly not dying. Advertisers are willingly giving Google more money every year. They're doing that because they're obviously getting results. They're not just donating money to Google, right? So that's not true. The only scenario in which the platform, any ad platform would die is if the users stop using it. So once people stop using Google and YouTube and Gmail and Maps and just all the various places where you can have Google Ads, which is absolutely not going to happen anytime soon, we're absolutely fine as advertisers. What people do is their ads stop working, maybe because a competitor's brought something out better or they haven't updated it and they've got issues, it's become stale, they haven't kept up with things, they haven't taken advantage of the new features. And instead of taking responsibility for that themselves, Google advertisers go, well, my results are rubbish now because the platform's dying. And it's just an excuse, it's just a cop-out, and it is not helpful. Point number 20, no one is paying hardly any attention to your ads. This is something just afflicts marketers in general, is that because they think so much about their own advertising, their own marketing, they assume that their prospects are as well. That's not true. Your prospects are barely paying any attention to your ads whatsoever. That's true on the search network, That's definitely true on the other networks where you've got more sort of interruption-based advertising. So what does that mean? It means you want to keep your ad copy as simple as possible. Get that click, make it obvious what it is that your product service does, how it helps people. For the most part, you don't want to try and be cute and clever. And then with the other ad formats, that's mostly a search network piece of advice. With the other ad formats, you've got to keep stuff engaging. Don't have boring, basic image ads with nothing going on, the sort that you still see a lot of and you would more typically think of as having been used 10, 15 years ago, but they're still very much around. You see them all the time. Think about your videos, your imagery has to be really engaging, has to be interesting, has to grab people's attention. Because like I said, people are not paying much attention at all to your ads. Don't make the mistake of thinking they are. Number 21, get your Google ad campaign structure right. A lot of Google advertisers like to really overcomplicate things, and that can really negatively impact your Google ad results, particularly if you're operating with a relatively small budget, or particularly if you don't have a lot of conversion data that Google knows exactly what to do and how to optimize and all things like that. And to help make sure that you get your Google ad campaign structure correct, I've created this video here where I walk you through my favorite Google ad campaign structure. It's well worth a watch in case you haven't already gone for it. It's actually quite simple and easy to implement what I recommend, but you do need to get this right. So go ahead and check that out.